We're at the exact halfway point of Ohio State's season, 6 games in, 6 games to go in the regular season. Probably a good time to assess one of the big offseason storylines for Ohio State, which was remaking the coaching staff, especially on the defensive side, and then with the additions of Jim Knowles as defensive coordinator, Tim Walton as secondary coach, Perry Eliano as safeties coach, and then Justin Fry also coming on as the offensive line coach. The biggest swath of changes Ryan Day's had to make since he was hired in before the 2019 season. So, Doug, how would you grade those coaching changes as we sit at the halfway mark of the season?
Yeah, I think it's an A, and it should be an A because you're Ohio State and you have a lot of money and everybody wants to work here. So it should be an A every time, but it's not always an A. And so, there were some hires previously that Ryan Day made that I didn't love, but I think when you look at the way the offensive line is playing, Justin Fry is making a difference, replacing Greg Studrawa. And I think the secondary coaches, Perry Eliano and Tim Walton, seem like they're doing a good job. This is not really applying it to recruiting, which is a huge part of all their jobs. I'm really thinking more about teaching, game planning, motivating the players, and what we're seeing them do this season. And Jim Knowles is $2 million a year. He better be an A, but he's absolutely an A. So they needed to be better at this. And it is really, truly one of the most important things that a head coach does is hire his staff. And it feels like he went 4 for 4, and I think you can visibly see the impact. The corners need to play a little better. You can visibly see the impact of the guys that are here, and this program needed it.
Steven, your grade for those 4 guys so far?
Yeah, I agree with Doug. I'm giving it an A too. I'm not going to ding Tim Walton at all for the cornerback play because as we talked about on the pod, they're in position. They're just not making the play, and it's the coach's job to put you in position, and he's done at least that part. The safeties, they got 4 guys they can legitimately trust back there right now. And then Sonny Styles is waiting in the wind. The defensive line, Mike Hall is apparently an alpha dog, and we didn't all know that. And then Tommy Eichenberg's a weapon as well. So the defensive side is working. And to the Justin Fry point, I think things are going well. And I know you said you're not going to attest recruiting to this. I think we're about to see some of the recruiting pay off too, especially on the offensive line, because it's some proof in the pudding now. And I think whether we're talking about the defense or we're talking about the offensive line, there was always an element to that of show me, don't tell me anymore. And I think the defense and the offensive line is starting to do that, and people are starting to take notice. So it's an A for me.
So I'm not going to let the cornerbacks coach off completely as far as guys making plays on the ball. And I think it matters more, though, if that's still happening 6 games from now, certainly into next season. At some point, that does become a technique thing, a teaching thing. But there are other factors happening there. There are guys who've been banged up, and I think that's contributed to why you've seen some of that play there. But listen, at the end of the day, this is the best offense in the country. It just is. By every metric that's out there, you look at ESPN's SP+, you look at Football Outsiders, they're blowing the rest of the country away offensively right now. By a pretty big factor. And we all kind of laughed a little bit when Ryan Day was like, oh, this should be a top 10 defense. We'll go look at a lot of the metrics on defense right now, and this is a team that's on the cusp of being a top 10 defense. Look at a lot of those same metrics and inside the top 10 in some ways. So I feel like we're all this just became the Homer video cast or whatever, but it's an A. It's an A. I don't know how you could say it's not an A.
When the assistants are bad, we say the assistants are bad. We've been handing out season Ds to the guys who deserve season Ds for a while.
No, I think that's a good point. And I think right now, again, it's not even so much each individual performance. The question is more, Ryan Day had a big task in the offseason. This is a window that they've got this year and next year specifically where the talent has piled up in a way at important positions where they needed to maximize it. They felt an opportunity slipped away last year. That offense could have gone on the field against any of those teams in the playoffs and hung, and it didn't get there because of specific deficiencies, some of which were recruiting that even predated those coaches, but some of it was teaching and fundamentals and execution that didn't happen. And 6 games in, that is not the way we're talking about this team. We're talking about how much they have brought better things out of guys that maybe weren't even expecting, whether it's Tommy Eichenberg, whether that's Cade Stover. It's happening all over this team. And so for that reason, I think, you would have to call this an A performance for Ryan Day, at least to this point. Bigger tests are coming. So get the texts, 614-350-3315 for all the intel and analysis that we bring you from Buckeye Talk, and get the Buckeye Talk podcast wherever you can find all podcasts, 6 episodes a week through the rest of the season.